providing inspiration and community for women in business of Middle Tennessee. This is Powered by Her with Tiffany Anton.
You're indestructible, indestructible. You are indestructible. You're indestructible, indestructible. You are indestructible.
Thanks to our partners at Harper's Rare Books and Collectibles. Owner Louis Matheny supports local artists, and we are excited to announce Andrea Kruzka Photography is having her first ever art show. It starts on July 15th in the upstairs gallery of Harper's. Harper's Rare Books is a community supporter of local arts. Reach out to Louis if you're interested in featuring your art at Harper's. To learn more about Harper's Rare Books and Collectibles, head over to harpersrarebooks.com or check them out on Facebook. So excited about our new partnership with Brandon Parrish from Mortgage Investors Group. If you're looking for financing options for a new home purchase or even refinancing your current mortgage, call Brandon. I've worked with Brandon multiple times and he has answered all of my questions in the finance process. He is available to answer questions and make the overall process feel a little less confusing and easier. Brandon Parrish, NMLS number 869942. Mortgage Investors Group is an Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 34391. Hi, welcome to Powered by Her. I am Tiffany Anton. If you'd like to know more about Powered by Her, head over to poweredbyhercommunity.com to find out more. Today I have Christine Klein from Belle and Beau Acres.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. We were just talking about how the reason I kind of even found you is that your husband is your biggest hype man.
Yes.
So tell me what Belle and Beau Acres is.
Okay. Well, Belle and Beau Acres is where we live. It's we call it a homestead because, for lack of a better word, really, it is a modern day homestead. And by that I mean
I was
that
going to say, what does that mean for the people who
there's
aren't?
actually a whole, documentary, I think, on Netflix about this, by the way, about urban homesteading.
Yeah.
But we are rural. And I say modern day homestead because we're still working, doing regular jobs, and but
you're not completely living off the
Yeah,
land.
we're not like totally off the grid or anything like that. You
did walk in with your cell phone today.
Yes, exactly. But by homesteading, I mean we're making strides towards providing more food for ourselves and just living off of the land and providing for ourselves from that land as much as possible.
Where did you get inspired to even live a lifestyle like that?
I grew up in Maine, which pretty much summarizes where that
There's
drive
some crunchy people.
There's where that drive comes from. I was typically called a granola girl in school, and I even stood out a little bit in my small town, like school, in that way.
Yeah.
But basically from my dad. Like my dad was an avid outdoorsman. He was a registered Maine guide. And so he raised me hunting, fishing, the works. I was the firstborn, so I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And he just always raised me in a way that didn't limit me because I was a girl.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
So I think that that's an interesting. I was raised by my dad as well, and I think that sometimes that can be. I used to always say, "You just wish I was a son," but now I love the fact that I know how to use a drill and I know how to do things around the house, and I'm not afraid to just try things out.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you get so into those gender roles that you can't function.
Right. It is limiting for
Yeah.
sure. And my dad was the same way in that I was outside grabbing his, old rusty saw to try to make my own fort. And one of my chores was mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
And, and it was my lifestyle. And
and I think, do you think that kind of has perpetuated you to be a business owner and kind of mow your own way a little bit of I'm just going to try these things and I'm not afraid of them?
Definitely. I watched my dad. My dad was a young father. He was actually still in high school when I was born. So he had to work really hard to provide for us. And he worked a lot. And so I'm a latchkey kid. I was home alone a lot and with my little brother, and just had to, find ways to entertain myself, and I watched my dad for years gather old materials to build his first cabin up on a little piece of land, hunting land that we had, and then that came to be, and that's where like my graduation party was. And those experiences and watching my dad like do that little by little and not be afraid and just do it is definitely inspiring.
So then you found yourself in Florida at some point, and you decided, I mean, we're skipping some parts, but you decided that you were going to start, you really got into art.
Yes.
And tell me about that.
So I've always been interested in art as well. I had some wonderful teachers growing up who recognized some of that talent in me and, you know, suggested that I be placed in a special program for art. And so that was nurtured pretty young for me from school, and just my parents were supportive in that. And
did you think that at that time, like growing up, was it just, you know, this is something fun and cool to do, or was it like I could do something with this?
No, I think because of like the interest from the teachers, the support from the teachers at school, I realized like, oh, wait, maybe there is something to this. And so I actually took every art class that I could think of, or that was available to me in public schools. And I got pretty lucky because I switched high schools halfway through. And so I had access to a completely new realm of art classes. And so I took everything that I could. And it was very interesting for me to figure out like what kind of an artist I wanted to be, or that I am, where my strengths were. And I come to realize that it was more in like 3D elements, fibers. I love working with fabrics and beads and just paper, all of those, you know, fiber.
But you kind
elements.
of were able to hone that in a little bit.
Yes, and it was because of the classes.
So so you're in Florida and you start, you decide that you're going to have an artist event.
Well, nope, I started as an artist actually. So yeah, there were a lot of like little like craft and art events that were starting to pop up, like little ones. And then this really interesting one came about called the Odd Duck Handmade Bazaar. And actually I had a much longer name to start, but and I was like, wow, that sounds really interesting. And I saw that it was run by women, and I'm like, that's really cool. And so I applied to be a vendor at that event, and I was accepted. And my booth was full of like sewing things that I had sewn, and mostly geared towards children's toys and those types of items, because my kids were really young at that time, and that's what I was focused on.
Yeah.
And so I was home making these things that they would enjoy playing with, and I was going and selling them as well. And from that point, I realized that, you know, I really loved the event. It was fun. And then found out that the group organizing that event was kind of changing shape, and they were taking interviews for a new person to replace one of their 4 members that started the event. And I went, I interviewed, and they accepted me. And so I became one of the 4.
And at this time, you're doing full-time art. So
I was, well, I was actually a full-time homemaker. I was staying home with my kids. I'm trying to remember the time frame. I also went back to school. I earned my bachelor's degree in elementary education while the kids were little as well.
Yeah.
And so I was earning a degree, I was making art, and you know, and
taking care of
and then
children.
I decided to join this group, you know, to help make this event happen.
So what was the motivation? You know, you have all these other, you're a full-time, kind of a full-time student, a full-time mom, a full-time artist. Let's throw something else in there. What was the motivation? What did you believe in the event? What was it about that?
So I guess for me, even though my husband's always been really supportive and he had an amazing job that allowed, you know, me to stay home with the kids, no matter what, I couldn't just be home doing nothing. I shouldn't say nothing.
I was going to say,
as
we like name all these things, you're not doing nothing.
But I meant nothing in terms of for me, like more for me. Like being home was for my family, but I always try to stay in touch with things that, you know, kept me whole as well, and things that I could focus on for me.
I think that is such a thing with young moms. It's this thankless job a bit, and we put so much strain and pressure on ourselves. I as well stayed at home with my kids when they were young, and I did feel that just like fire in my belly to like what can I do for me and how can I make a bigger impact? I'm very much a person that I want to leave an impact on the community I'm in. And so I think that that's really relatable to a lot of women of, I need to do something more.
Yeah.
Even though I'm doing a million things and I'm exhausted at the end of the day, but it's just not the right aim for it.
Yeah. I think it's very relatable too. I hear a lot of other moms talking about the same thing. And I also am very motivated to make money. Like if I'm going to do something, I would love to make it profitable, you know, and how can I turn this into something that's, you know, solving multiple things for me.
No, I think that's, and it's not necessarily even solving. I think sometimes it's not necessarily that you felt like, oh, we're not doing enough financially,
right?
But it feels nice to add and contribute and be rewarded for your hard work. I think that's a better way to say
sometimes,
it. Sometimes, again, women can say, "Well, I'm just going to volunteer at this thing," and and kind of devalue themselves sometimes.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, I'm gonna jump in.
So I did the event and then I interviewed and was accepted as one of the 4. We produced the next event at the same location, and that was a success. But then the group fell apart again, as it does, because women are, like you said, are often juggling a lot, and so things change year to year, and so the group would change because everybody's needs changed, year to year, and so it came down to just 2 of us basically, like, holding the bag, myself and my good friend Shelly, and we decided to just go for it by ourselves and not interview anybody else and just do it, the 2 of us. We felt that we had enough experience at that point to handle it ourselves, and we were right. Yeah. So we did.
And you ended up putting out, I was just looking through your social media, and you ended up putting out a zine. And
which had started from the beginning. I have to say, the girls that started this, it was a great idea, a great concept. We continued to use some of the artwork from one of the original members, and Alexis, she actually lives in Franklin now, so it's just a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
So basically, we continued the zine, and that became my baby. I was more of the digital artist, where Shelly was like more of our numbers person, and then we came together. We used our strengths and then came together tackling everything
Which
else.
is kind of, I say that a lot with business owners, is like, you have this one passion, but you have to kind of know, and it's good to have a partner on hand, but you kind of have to know all of the business aspects to be able to run something like that.
Yes, you do. And you also have to know your strengths and weaknesses, and to ask for help and seek out help for the weaknesses that you might have. And we all have them.
So at what point did Odd Duck Bazaar, when did you let that go? So I think that's another thing that women struggle with sometimes.
That was about, I'm trying to think of what year our final year was. It may have been 2015 or 2014.
Where were you at in your life of saying, okay, it's time to let this go?
Shelly had decided she was going to become a realtor. So she was making another pivot in her professional life. And we also got to the point where we had a nice strong run of it, and we saw the market was changing. And so the type of event that we held charged admission, and it was, it was a juried event. We handpicked every vendor. And so it just became a bit challenging, where the market was really oversaturated with these types of events. Like, one had started happening like every weekend in the next town over, which in South Florida, there's really no next town over. It's kind of all meshes together, the market had changed, and we just realized that, maybe, and it was a lot of work for not a lot of reward. So a lot of work. Like, we worked pretty much all year round trying to plan and organize this event, and the reward was good, but to continue doing it and maybe not be able to charge admission anymore because of what the market was demanding really changed, like, whether or not we could put that much energy and time into a project like that.
Yeah. So what do you think you learned? How long was the run for?
It was over 5 years. We took 1 year hiatus and came back to it. We had also changed locations partway through because another city had
reached out and said,
yeah, they were
hey,
like,
we want you here.
Yeah, we want you here. And they were great. We actually expanded and we were just a one annual event and expanded and did like a street event for the holidays. And so yeah, it became a little bit bigger.
What was the biggest thing that you think you learned from that experience of like you said, it wasn't a huge reward. It's not like you became a millionaire overnight from that.
Yeah,
but what do you think that you learned about that?
It's really, really important to be organized.
Yeah.
Organized and planning ahead was so important to make sure everything went smoothly. And it's hard, but you make lists and try to think of like every aspect that might come up because it probably will.
Do you think that you've taken that organization piece into your business now?
Absolutely.
So let's go to that.
Yeah.
So we kind of pivoted away, but so you're having living on a homestead?
Yeah. So we have a nice chunk of property in Baxter, and so I'll back up a little bit and talk about Hip Camp actually.
Yeah.
So Hip Camp was founded in California by Alyssa Ravasio, and that took place, 2013. So she started that in 2013, and now I didn't learn about that.
So what is Hip Camp?
Yeah, so Hip Camp is basically, long story short, it's basically the Airbnb of camping. It's putting landowners in contact with people who want to, go camping and maybe find a spot that they've, never been able to access before. So it's providing more options for people to, get out and travel. Basically, the way that Alyssa Ravasio has explained it is that she realized that it was really hard to get campsites on short notice or, shorter notice. A lot of times you have to book a year in advance on some places, a lot of places actually. And so I think she was just trying to put more options in the reach of everybody. So,
and are most of these campsites are more rustic?
I think actually it's completely across the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like you will find everything on Hip Camp. Our location is completely rustic.
Yeah.
We've chosen to go that route because it was the kind of camping that my husband and I preferred before we had children. And then, our camping lifestyle, we went camping with our kids throughout their whole lives. They're now in the later years of high school. And camping is something that you pass on typically generation to generation. It's something that a lot of families do, and it's a great way to spend time together.
Well, and at this point, there's families are not spending that kind of time together anymore. Yeah, where it's like, well, where do I charge my phone out here? What do you mean? Like, oh, I can't have my phone. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, we're going to spend more time, like, you're bonded to time together.
Yeah, you're forced to. And we would, when we'd go camping with our kids, we would only allow like very small pockets of electronic time, as we called it. And it was usually in the evening when we wanted them to fall asleep.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just so many memories. I used to go camping as a kid, and we would tent camp, and there's so many memories that are made that you don't really even understand when you're there making them about that family time.
And the learning process for children in that environment is amazing.
So you decided that you wanted to be one of these Hip Camp locations, and why open your home and your property up to people like that?
Okay, so it was the eclipse, the Great American Eclipse that we had, and
for people who weren't in this area and people who, over the country, like we were in the place to watch the eclipse.
We were one of the places, obviously we all knew we were in the path of totality, but as the event got closer, there became this buzz about how all of the hotels were booked up and how there were people in Cookeville renting out their yards for camping. And we were like, what? We were like, really? And so it was something, having a campground is something that my husband and I sort of dreamed about a little bit, as a maybe one day retirement idea. which was silly now that I'm doing it, because I would not want to be starting this in my retirement
well,
days.
it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. It's a lot more work than maybe we anticipated, but the growth is natural and the work progression is natural, so it's not like too overwhelming.
Yeah.
But
It's physical labor.
It's very physical, and we have no equipment really, just a mower, and my husband just added a little dump cart to it.
Yeah.
So no tractor or anything, so it's been all hand power.
Yeah. So the eclipse was 7 years ago?
Yeah,
8 years ago now?
2017 was the
Okay.
eclipse.
Yeah.
Yep. And so Hip Camp had been around for like a few years at that point, and I started to hear about Hip Camp. A girlfriend of mine actually mentioned it, and I was like, oh, really? I think I will look into this because that's something that's always piqued our interest. We love to go camping. This is something that we know. And when I looked into it, I was like, okay, I can get on board with their platform. They had it was a very attractive platform to use. And there are other camping platforms that I could join. Actually, I've been added to without my knowledge and later found out. And so I just really liked their platform. I loved the way that Alyssa had designed it. I thought it was very user-friendly, and it allowed us to very easily just start doing it.
Yeah.
And so we didn't carve out any campsites or anything really. We just put up the listing, put up a couple of pictures, and set a pretty low price. Like, I think we did it by per person at that point, and just said primitive camping, pick your spot. And
anywhere on your property.
yeah, we
Oh,
basically
wow.
said like, come out and just pick your spot for the eclipse, right?
Yeah.
So we set it up just for the eclipse. It was kind of like our test run. Well, it was a perfect test run because I set a limit of, I think, 20 bookings, because I was like, I didn't really know what that would look like, in real life, on the property. And so I was a little nervous to like just allow as many that wanted to come.
Yeah.
So I was like, keep it kind of small and we'll see how this works. Because we don't have bathrooms, we don't have running water, we don't have electricity for these people. So I needed to make sure that they weren't trashing the place or anything like that. So I wanted to keep it under control. And it was an amazing experience. We had people from Canada, we had people from, I want to say, they drove from all over. Some drove all night long just to get to our property to see this eclipse.
Wow.
And it was a really, really special experience, and everything was positive, and the feedback was really positive, and everybody was like, we had several that wanted to add days, and so we let them stay extra days. And
The kids are like, Mom, are these people going to move out here? They're just like,
no, it
"Sun is on our
really,
front
really
yard."
was fun, because it was such a great way to get feedback from other people. Like, okay, this is special. And that's what it was. Like, people were like, this property is special. Like, I want to come back here. And
Well, and do you realize the impact of bringing people to Baxter, to the Upper Cumberland from all over, and kind of that tourism aspect of getting to share? I'm a super protective person of our home area. When people say they don't like this area, I get, kind of ruffled up. But you get to kind of bring people in here and then, help to facilitate.
yeah, and I feel like we're able, like in our experience, we're showing them some of the best of what Upper Cumberland has to offer. And I feel very proud about that, because we do take our customer service to the top level, and our reviews reflect that, and we try to do a really good job hosting and being a face for the Upper Cumberland in a positive way.
What would you tell women about starting a business or kind of pursuing their passion and dreams?
I would say the biggest thing is just taking that first step, and that's really what it is. It's steps. And so try not to get too bogged down or overwhelmed with the what ifs of the future, and just go step by step.
How important is it that you've mentioned your husband a bit? How important is it just to have someone there that's your hype person that kind of probably pushes you a little bit to take that first step, but then is there, cheering you on when you do?
Yeah, I think it's really important. He pushed me for this. I'm not comfortable being in front of the camera because I'm always behind the camera. I'm mom. I'm the one taking all the pictures all the time, or the videos, and even my social media, you'll see it's mostly nature or David doing work because I'm usually the one holding up the, taking the pictures and video. Yeah. But I'm sorry. I lost
having the hype person, I think.
I think that's really important. Like, he pushed me to do this today, and it is really important to have, and I equally do that for him as well. And everybody has ups and downs and doubts, and we all do it.
Well, and I think even when I think one thing to remember when you're running a business is that even if you're a year into it, you can still have those down days, and you can still have those doubts of, you're about 5 years into this now, and I'm sure there's days where you're like, are we doing the right thing? Are we still, we're still okay with this? And kind of, taking a pulse of what's going on. I think that's because I think sometimes we forget that this is normal. The doubts are normal.
Yeah. And I think it's important to be, the other piece of advice I say is be flexible and pivot. Like, the pandemic was a huge part of it, and that sort of changed, how we were doing business as well. And, my husband has a home inspection company. And so during the shutdown, everything got really quiet, and, we were spending a lot more time at home together. But the campground was a sanctuary for people because of our setup and the fact that none of our campsites are close together. Like, that was one thing that we wanted to respect, was like the privacy and just giving people that full immersive nature experience on our property. So none of our campsites are close together. You can't see other people camping when you're camping at your campsite. So it was important for us to keep maintaining that. And it was nice that we were able to provide that to people who needed to get out of their homes.
Right, needed that, some type of relaxation, get out.
And feel safe doing it.
Yeah, and so it's really interesting. I think some people get, COVID was terrible for some places, but COVID kind of was helpful for some businesses.
It was,
and doesn't make us bad business owners. It doesn't make, it's just that we happen to have the right business.
The nature of the game. Yeah. And being willing to pivot and kind of, so like we just immediately made adjustments that were more inviting for people and made people feel more comfortable. Like, we went like I used to give people papers when they checked in and things. Well, it changed how I do things, and now I've continued to do it the way I changed during the pandemic, which is we completely paperless check-in process. And some can even come in if they needed to and not greet me at all, but most of them I greet.
Yeah. So what do you see the next 5-10 years for Belle and Beau Acres? What do you see?
That's always a good question, and we are constantly thinking about how we want to evolve and grow on our property. And the primitive camping is definitely the way I want to keep going, because I don't see that being offered as much, especially around here. And we have such an amazing area for that nature adventure. And I feel that we're offering the style of camping to those really adventurous types who don't want to see the other people camping. They want to take hikes. They might even want to hike to their campsite, which we offer.
Well, and in this area, Baxter's not that far away. They can come. They can come into town if they want. They can go to the waterfalls. It's a pretty great location where you're not so remote that people can't do other things.
So we're thinking about maybe adding an off-grid cabin at some point. Not anytime soon, but that's something that's in our thought process for down the road. I'm also working on kind of adjusting my my art studio into an on-site gift shop for guests that come to the property, and they can buy handmade items, not just by me, but I hope to also stock that with some other artist items from the area. And there's a lot of great artists in Silver Point, and with the school. So I'm hoping to do that as well. And just, I make other things too digitally. So I'm not just a fiber artist. I can do digital art stuff or work as well.
So if people want to find you, how can they find the campground? How can they find you?
Okay, well, me in terms of art, not online. That's going to be an in-person thing.
Find her.
Yeah,
Hunt her down.
yeah. The campground is belleandbeauacres.com, and that's BelleandBeau acres, ACRES.com. I know it's a long one, but it does actually come right up if you just search Belle and Beau Acres. We come right up in the top searches. So.
And then you're on Instagram and
and definitely find me on Instagram. That's my favorite platform to use actually, because it's all photos and videos, and I like to update that pretty frequently with activity that we're doing or just pretty photos of the property.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm excited to see what you have going in the future and how you bring people into the area and what impact you make on the Upper Cumberland region.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here. Check out Belle and Beau Acres, Christine Klein. Thank you so much. If you want to know more about Powered by Her, head over to poweredbyhercommunity.com. I'm Tiffany Anton. Thanks for listening. Be sure to call Brandon Parrish at Mortgage Investors Group of Cookeville. Brandon Parrish, NMLS number 869942. Mortgage Investors Group is an equal housing lender, NMLS number 34391.